The anger and emotional outbursts from kids with ADHD can be incredibly challenging. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and unsure of what to do. And many well-meaning parents unknowingly fall into 7 traps that can actually worsen their child's anger. Falling into these traps could mean more tense family relationships, difficulties at school, and struggles with friendships. They could even increase the risk of anxiety and depression down the road. This is why I'm going to tell you what these 7 common anger traps are, and more importantly, how to avoid them. This way, you can help your ADHD child build the emotion regulation skills they need to experience less anger, less often, and bring back more peace into your home. But before I get to what these traps are, if you've ever felt overwhelmed or lost trying to support your child with ADHD, tap the like button below. It helps other parents find this information too and know they're not alone. Now let's start with the first anger trap, and it's one I see all the time. The ping pong game. Imagine a ping pong or table tennis match. Each player's goal is to keep the ball in play back and forth across the net. Now, picture that little plastic ball as your child's anger. They serve up some nasty words or maybe even take a swing at you, and that little anger ball comes barreling toward you. As a player in the game, you respond with, "Whoa, what's going on?" and send the ball flying right back at them. The thing is, kids want to stay in the game. They've got your attention now. And kids like whatever kind of attention they can get, even if it's negative. So they're certainly going to send that ball right back at you again, probably by yelling something like, "Ugh, nothing," or even, "She's so annoying, she won't stop bugging me." And now you're drawn in even more. Without thinking much, you ask a question, tell them what to do, or maybe even try to reason with them. You send that little ball back with, "Oh, come on, she's not always bothering you," or, "Hey, don't talk to me like that." And the game just keeps going. You end up encouraging more anger because your responses give more attention to the behaviors in your child that you don't want, the ones that escalate emotions even more. And all you're doing is giving them more practice at keeping that little anger ball flying. So how do you get out of this trap and avoid it altogether? Just let the ball drop. Avoid responding to your child's anger both verbally and non-verbally. If you let the ball drop, they can't keep playing the game and they won't even want to. Their negative behavior is no longer being rewarded with your attention. When they show a sign of calm or more regulated and appropriate behavior, then you can pick up a different ball, a more calm, positive one, and serve that back to them. But how do you serve up something more positive? By avoiding this next trap, the hurricane energy cycle. Have you ever felt like your child's anger is like hurricane force winds, like a powerful vortex fueled by heated emotions? Their hurricane of feelings and misbehavior can get so overwhelming and frustrating for you. Eventually, you yell to try to stop it. But hurricanes get their energy from warmer waters underneath, and yelling just heats up those waters even more, fueling your child's anger. We know from research that when a parent yells, a child's amygdala, the brain structure that processes fear and anger, gets more activated. This leads to more aggression, and more aggression leads to more yelling from the parent, which leads to more child aggression, resulting in the hurricane energy cycle trap. Aside from the common advice of don't yell back, how can you really build yourself strong and sturdy so you don't add more energy to their hurricane? You've got to change what's happening in your mind, the way you are thinking, in order to respond differently and change that cycle. Remind yourself that yelling at your child when emotions are strong teaches your child that yelling is something to do when they're angry. Use your imagination and positive self-talk to avoid yelling. Go to your most zen place in your mind. Maybe you picture a serene beach or a relaxing spa day. Hold these images in your mind until the hurricane dies down. Use positive self-talk like, "It's my job to show them how to respond calmly so they learn." This helps you and your child get out of that cycle by regulating your emotions and reactions first. By the way, I've got a whole section in my ADHD Masterclass program dedicated to calming big emotions. Check out the link in the description to learn more. But in order to more easily cool off the waters, you also need to notice the early signs of their hurricane growing. Which brings us to the third trap, not teaching your child about the anger alarm system. Our emotional alarm system is so valuable. It helps us survive and gives us powerful clues to our feelings. This alarm system fires based on what's happening inside our body. Like a minute ago when I said, you need to notice the signs of their hurricane growing, what came to your mind? I'm sure that over time, you become aware of the signals your child sends when they're about to lose it. Maybe it's their tone of voice, sudden movements with their body, or maybe a part of their body starting to clench. Most parents intuitively know some of the bodily signs that indicate specific feelings in their child. This third trap is about neglecting to teach your child about their alarm system, about what their bodily cues and sensations mean. So clue your child in. Help them understand their own alarm system. Ask them what happens in their body when they feel different emotions like anger, sadness, and worry. They can even draw a self-portrait or a body map of the different signs like red cheeks or sweating or clenched fists. When kids can link what's happening in their body to emotions, they can take action sooner to make it better. But how do you build this emotional awareness? How do you actually teach kids those skills? By avoiding the fourth anger trap, brain muscle loss. See, people with ADHD tend to have decreased volume or activity in the prefrontal cortex region of their brain. And the prefrontal cortex is responsible for executive functions like decision-making, planning, and emotion regulation, things that people with ADHD struggle with. I think there's one powerful practice that benefits all parents and children, but it's especially crucial for those with ADHD. This practice naturally increases activity in the prefrontal cortex and helps them improve executive functioning. It also increases the actual thickness of the hippocampus, which is a structure involved in memory and learning. And it decreases the size of the amygdala, which controls your fight or flight responses, also known as the fear alarm system. All of this will likely help improve ADHD symptoms, including emotion regulation. The practice I'm talking about is mindfulness. So help your child experience less anger and develop better emotional control. Prioritize building their brain muscles by consistently practicing mindfulness. For kids, doing yoga can have a similar effect. It increases dopamine and strengthens the prefrontal cortex. Don't miss a natural opportunity to improve emotion regulation and grow those brain muscles. Don't skip mindfulness. I actually believe it's so important that I've made it an integral part of my ADHD Masterclass program. I want to help more parents build mindfulness into their daily habits. Because a consistent mindfulness practice that teaches you to observe the present moment non-judgmentally will ultimately help you develop more emotional awareness, which is the first step in regulating emotions. And the cool thing about more emotional awareness is that you can more easily tell the difference between anger and other feelings, which brings me to the fifth common anger trap, what I call the anger error. Many kids will act out their emotions physically and with their voice because they don't yet have the skills to do otherwise. Kids have tantrums and meltdowns, even ones that involve physical aggression, because of all kinds of emotions, not just anger. For example, many kids that are anxious will physically act out when they're afraid. And sadness and depression can actually come across as anger and irritability. Kids' verbal abilities and emotional awareness are still under construction, and you don't want to always take their anger at face value. Not every shout or punch is because of anger. So don't make the anger error and falsely assume that anger is just anger. Before you fall into this trap, take notice. What else could be going on? Could what looks like anger actually be covering something else? When you address that something else, like the anxiety, for example, the anger will get better too. Speaking of taking notice, the next anger trap is about disregarding your child's window of tolerance. It's actually a term coined by Dr. Dan Siegel and is popular in trauma therapy. It describes someone's optimal window between overstimulation and overwhelm and understimulation and underwhelm. It's the ideal zone unique to you where you feel regulated, can think clearly, and do what you need to do. In this ideal zone, you feel in control and safe. You can process information and problem solve, and you're able to be present with your emotions. When you are above your ideal zone of tolerance, in a hyper-aroused state, you often feel reactive, defensive, aggressive, anxious, or fearful. Usually, when you're too far above your zone, feelings are strong and stimulation is very high. When you're below your ideal zone in a hypo-aroused state, you might feel more disconnected, a lack of energy, or withdrawal. For sensory-sensitive kids with ADHD, clutter-filled, disorganized, or noisy environments can easily move them above their ideal zone, making it that much harder to regulate their emotions. On the other side, not enough challenge or movement can move them below their ideal zone. This is why you don't want to unintentionally ignore the things that could move kids with ADHD out of their optimal window of tolerance. To avoid this trap, pay close attention to your child's unique window. If they're moving above their zone, recognize their overwhelm and work toward very low stimulation, fewer words, and a validating stance. If they're moving below their zone, notice their disconnection, lack of energy, or withdrawal, and try activities that increase energy and stimulation. Take notice of regular activities and habits that keep them in their window of tolerance and changes you need to make to help them. By the way, if you're finding this video helpful so far, tap the like button and subscribe to let me know. The final anger trap is one that I sadly hear about from so many ADHD parents. It's a trap that I fall into as well, the blame game. Have you ever had that experience where your child yelled at you, maybe even something hurtful or offensive, and you thought to yourself, what the heck am I doing wrong for them to behave that way? It's a common trap of self-blame, of letting your child's behavior form your beliefs about yourself. Most ADHD parents have told me that they've blamed themselves at some point, believing they must be doing something wrong, because at times it's so hard to parent a child with ADHD. But to avoid this blame game trap, you have to avoid even asking yourself, what am I doing wrong in the first place? Because your child's difficulties like emotion regulation or impulsivity are not a result of parenting them wrong. Their brain is wired differently and they already have genuine difficulty with these things. So when your child is angry, take their behaviors and their words as signs that they're angry and nothing more. Replace your what am I doing wrong thoughts with, gosh, they must be really angry to say that about me. And as hard as it is, avoid taking it personally. What they're saying or doing is often not intentional, but rather a reflection of their impulsivity and lack of self-regulation. That pause between their emotion and what they're saying and doing is something they struggle with and are still learning. It's not a reflection of your ability to be a good parent. Parenting a child with ADHD can be incredibly challenging, but you're not alone. If you're looking for a supportive community and more strategies for lasting change, click the link in the description to join my ADHD Masterclass program. Now you know these common anger traps, but there's still more to learn about how to help kids with ADHD. Click here for more tips on that. And remember, put your relationships first, and I'll see you in the next video.